I thought today I'd concentrate on the seasonal customs. So I'm going sort of through. I'm starting with New Year and ending with Christmas. And the calendar, the Celtic calendar, the Scottish calendar, the traditional calendar is quite controversial. So I'd like to just do one or two quotes to begin with. E.J. Guthrie, in his Old Scottish Customs, Local and General, which was right back in 1885, says, in Druidical times, 4 great fire festivals were held at different periods of the year, namely on the eve of May Day, which is Beltane, of course, on Midsummer's Eve, on Halloween, and at Yule, which was the midwinter feast. That doesn't quite fit in with the quarter days, does it? But the Encyclopedia of Celtic Mythology, that's Patricia Monaghan, it's a more recent book, says, unlike most ancient peoples, the Celts did not divide the seasons at solstices, which are the year's longest and shortest days, and equinoxes, when day and night are equal. Rather, they began and ended seasons at the central point between the solar pivots. That's a bit complex, isn't it? The winter began on Samhain, November the 1st, midway between the autumnal equinox on September the 21st and the winter solstice on December 21st. Similarly, spring began on Imbolc, February the 1st, summer on Beltane, May the 1st, and fall on Lughnasadh, August the 1st. And Nora Chadwick, in her book on the Celts, corroborates this from early literature. She says the persistent recurrence in the literature of certain days in the year which particularly important events took place make it possible to identify the 4 major peaks of the Celtic ritual calendar. This is reinforced by later folk tradition and Christian attempts to efface pagan practice by adopting and adapting to Christian usage with some certain well-established cult practices. And I remind you, of course, that pagan doesn't necessarily mean pre-Christian. Pagan is really a classical concept of superstition, and it can run along a parallel to standard religions, of course. So we're starting. Obviously, New Year was massively important. It was a fire festival, but it also involved forecasts of what was going to happen and taking out actions that would prefigure your success or otherwise in the coming year. This is just a general picture of the Hogmanay celebrations in Edinburgh. But particularly important in Scotland was the custom of first footing. It's found in northern England, but not so much in southern England. According to the first footing, you had a visitor. You can see the visitor arriving there. He's supposed to bring a gift with him. It's everything done or omitted on the first day of the year influences the succeeding 12 months. Therefore, it's vital that the first visitor should be propitious. The first foot should be a dark man who brings a gift of coal or a stick of fire or a drink from his bottle. In return, he's given drink and cake. So that with all these customs where you have visitors visiting single people or groups, you have to entertain them or reward them. It's a two-way process. In the borders, the fire was never allowed to go out on New Year's Eve. And an empty-handed visitor in Scotland was so badly omened that he might be suspected of deliberately ill-wishing the house. If possible, you should enter the front door and leave from the back door. And you can see here there's an extensive drawing here of first footing. And in the Shetlands, the first footers were called geysers. That's always a term we find quite often just describing disguised customs throughout Scotland. And here we have a photograph of the shecklers from the Lerwick Museum. At certain times of the year, particularly New Year, adults, mainly males, visited house in disguise. The face blacking in England has become very controversial, but I think the people that criticise face blacking at Halloween and Christmas as racist are not understanding what's going on. It's the other. So, I mean, my wife, for example, used to blacken her face at Halloween by using ash from the fire. It's just the other world figures were in the English and Scottish culture. The other world figures were dark, just as in the Caribbean, the other world figures were light. It's not actually racist. It's just the concept of other, and the but there was also an element of disguise. So people visited the Shetlands in disguise. Guisings recorded in the Isle of Lewis up to the First World War. There's a New Year rhyme from Lewis. This is Hansel night. That's another name for it in the Shetlands. Woman of the house, rise up and bring down the Hogmanay bannock. And a bannock was a special sort of food, particularly made at New Year. Then there were customs going on at New Year. For example, the boar game. This is Kirkwall 1911. You see masses of people there. It's a street football. In England, the street football was often on Shrove Tuesday, but in Scotland on New Year's Day. And in Kirkwall was called the Bar, B-A. It can last up to could last up to 7 hours and involve 700 players. George Mackay Brown, the celebrated Scottish writer, wrote of it, I usually think about the strength and endurance of the men of Kirkwall. Under the market cross, the bar is thrown up, and uppies and doonies, earls' men and bishops' men meet in a furious onset. Compared with it, rugby is as correct and mannered as cricket. And it faded away a bit after the First World War, but has been revived. But one custom and these are the photographs from the Kirkwall Museum of the balls used. See, they're quite substantial. And another game involving balls, a bit more like bowls. This one hasn't survived, but it's Kirkcuddy, where my wife comes from, and it's called Bawbee. It's capital A, then Bawbee, or Bawbee She Kyles, and they died out about 100 years ago, really. It was played on one day of the year only. Again, in Kirkcuddy, Hansel Monday is a term used, held in the grounds of Ravenscrag Castle, a kind of bowls, but instead of aiming at the jack, the ball was rolled into one of 9 holes from a mark 10 yards away. A kyle, as Kyle, was when a player achieved that object. The ball weighed about 8 pounds, had a diameter of 5 inches, and the holes were only 6 inches in diameter, so it's quite a skill. It was moved to New Year's Day, unless that was on a Sunday, in which case it was played the following day. In Scotland, there was an antipathy for playing games on Sundays at one time. It was the castle was open to the public. There were mutton pies, which are a traditional Scottish dish on New Year, and refreshments included in the early 20th century. Seville oranges were a delicacy quite often served. Commenced about 10 a.m. And it began to decline after the First World War and faded out completely in the 1950s. And this is a little picture of somebody holding one of the balls in their hands before taking part. So a bit like bowls. And then we come on, of course, to the fire festivals, very substantial, and particularly Stonehaven and Burghead. Swinging the fireballs. This is Stonehaven. coastal community near to Aberdeen in Kincardineshire, 16 miles south of Aberdeen, and at midnight on New Year, about 40 men and now women as well, women are now included, parade up and down the high street, swirling flaming balls. This is the celebration in 2003. They swirl these flaming balls around their heads for about 25 minutes. Since 1977, they've been accompanied by a drum band. Previously, there was a lone piper. They then march to the harbour after about half an hour, throw the fireballs into the sea, and a firework display follows. This is a very nice image that Neil sent to me. Then there can be up to 10,000 spectators. The high street is closed when it reaches capacity. So you've got to go early and stand around for quite a long time. The fireballs are wire netting globes packed with rags and other paraffin-soaked combustibles, held together in wire cases attached to long wire ropes, and they take quite a considerable time to make. They weigh between 5 and 15 pounds, and some have been up to 3 foot in diameter and been recorded as burning for 2 hours. There's just a limited number of swingers, as they're called, and they have to be pre-registered with official badges. This is an old photograph by Brian Shaw about 40 years ago. The custom, it's said to ward off evil spirits by purification and to ensure prosperity and to welcome back the sun. So New Year is it's a time of new beginnings, but it is a sort of turning point. The sun is now going to increase in strength, and these customs are to ensure that happens. But fire is there also to purify, to cleanse away the evil spirits and the ill luck. And it wasn't just at Stonehaven. Nearby fishing villages, Skate Row, for example, had a fireball ceremony in the 19th century. The earliest written account of Stonehaven that I've managed to find is the Stonehaven Journal of 1908, where it says, in the old town, much rejoicing took place in the high street, fireballs and coloured lights making an effective display. But there is an earlier oral record of a wife's grandfather recalling seeing the fireballs in the 1870s. And newspaper articles during the Second World War refer to it having taken place for over 100 years. There are police records of it from the 1850s. And during the late 19th century and right into the early 20th century, the custom was impromptu, with young fishing lads emerging from their lanes and the closes in Stonehaven with fireballs, swinging them between houses, where they would do first footing, leaving the fireball outside the house till they were ready to move on to the next one. It was very much contained within the domain of what they call the Old Town. It was banned in the Second World War during the blackout, and in 1948 only 2 or 3 swingers were reported, but the custom was saved by a few enthusiasts in the 1960s, and then older men and women got involved, and it's now world famous. The tourists come from all over to see it. And this is a painting of it by Alison Smith. I think it's rather nice. That's the parade. That's a more recent one. And there's also what they call burning out the old years. You can see the fire festivals as burning in the new year or burning out the old year or both. This is the flambeau procession. This is Corrie in Perthshire. So again, it's a fire festival with a procession that embraces the whole of the older communities. We're bringing good luck to the whole community. And then the other really famous one is at Burghead. And when we come to Burghead, we're into the change in the calendar. So Burghead is on the custom there is the 11th of January. It's the burning of the clavey, and that's Old New Year. In 1752, we finally adopted the Gregorian calendar, and to do so, we had to lose 11 days. And in the folk world, people felt the government were defrauding them of 11 days. And there some areas kept to the old dating. So Burghead didn't move to the 1st of January. It stayed 11 days later. Burghead again is a fishing village, 8 miles north of Elgin. It's got a lot of antiquity. Iron Age hill fort, important centre for people called the Verturians by the Romans, probably the capital of the Pictish kingdom of Fortio. So it could be, that elements of this custom go right back to the Picts. It might also be connected with the Vikings, who also had fire festivals and who settled on the coast as well there. The fort there had religious as well as secular significance. The Iron Age hill fort, about 30 stone panels with carved images of bulls were discovered in the 19th century, built into the quay of Burghead Harbour. But there's still 2 on show in the visitor centre, 2 in Elgin Museum, and one in the National Museum of Scotland, and 1 in the British Museum. So there may have been a bull cult in bygone years at the Clavey. In 884, Torridon, as it was called, was captured by Sigurd the Powerful, the Norse Earl of Orkney, and became a centre of Norse power. So again, the custom might have a Norse influence. The Scots expelled the Norse in 1010, and then the fishing village developed with the Stephen family, who began shipbuilding there in about 1750. Now the clavey, this is the clavey. The word comes from the Gaelic cleaba, a wicker object used for carrying. So it's got a Gaelic name. It's a portable fire beacon made in the afternoon to customary rules. Only the clavey crew, belonging to certain long-established local families, are involved in making it, and all the materials must be given or lent. Kirk records of the 17th and 18th century of flaming torches of fire suggest similar festivities took place at other northeastern Scottish fishing ports, and also we know inland at Inverarnon in Banffshire. But Burke is the only survival now. It says 11th of January, unless that's a Sunday, when they bring it forward to the Saturday. Again, it's regarded as purification. The Northern Scot magazine of 1899 says the burning of the clavey was carried out in Burghead on New Year's night with as great enthusiasm as ever, and the proceedings were watched by a large crowd. The clavey used to consist of an archangel herring barrel filled with tar, packed with staves. More recently, it's an iron-hooped whiskey cask daubed with creosote, sawn into 2 unequal halves, which symbolise differing parts of the old and new year. The smaller bottom section is then fixed onto an 8-foot pole called the spoke, which is like the stakes used by the Highland salmon fishers, with a single long nail, especially forged by the smith. This nail must be driven in with a round stone, the use of metal hammers being prohibited. So all these are rules for these New Year's ceremonies. The clavey stood against a wall in Granary Street. 2 men fill it with dry and tar-soaked wood stacked to form a pyramid. At 6 p.m., it's lit by a peat from the hearth of an old Burghead provost. More tars added, then carried by the elected Clavey king. Then the first Clavey bearer, formerly the most recently married crew member, takes it on his head and shoulders and runs to the harbour, followed by a cheering crowd. Should he stumble or fall beneath this heavy load, calamity will overtake him and the town. There are about 10 or so in the Clavey crew, they're usually fishermen, take it in turns to carry the very heavy load clockwise round the streets, following a fixed circuit, which is just covering the old town, ignoring the post-1800s extensions. They visit various homes where mouldering brands from the Clavey are presented. Some are also given to selected bystanders. This gives good luck and protection during the year. Embers kept in houses protect them against lightning. Those put in fields ensure a good crop and fertility. So after the Clavey has completed a half-hour circuit, it's carried sunwise round an artificial mound called the Brewery, where a cairn used to be annually made to receive it. But in 1809, a pillar was erected with a receptacle at its top to accommodate the spoke. The Clavey king climbs the pillar amid loud shouts to refuel it with more tar. As the barrel collapses into fiery fragments, spectators scramble for embers to be kept for luck or to send to Burghead people living far away. There's somebody being given a little bit of the Clavey there. Now, James McKinley's Folklore's Locks and Springs, which is a book of 1893, says the custom was considered old 200 years previously, so that would take about 400 or 500 years. The lights were carried around the boats in the harbour, and formerly the custom was in vogue at most of the fishing villages along the Morrisey coast. The object being the blessing of the boats to ensure a good fishing season. So maybe it was a fishing custom. There were bonfires at Dingwall, Campbelltown, Invergordon, Cowrie, Biggar, and Newton Stewart, and boat burning at Stranraer, Betty Hill in Sutherland, and on the northeast coast. The old photos here, old black and white photos. Are very good websites and all these. A lot of them are copyright, but you can see videos of all these customs by going online. The Clavey king there. That's the end of the Clavey there. And then, of course, the one I'm sure you've all heard of, the Shetland Up HES, and that's moved around a bit in dating. It's really old 12th night, so again, it's affected by the calendar change. Up HES means the ending of the holy days, which is a reference to 12th night. It's the last Tuesday in January, and until 1469, the Shetlands were Danish, and the festival of Yule was celebrated for a month. Formerly, Lerwick had a burning the old year out ceremony with sledges of blazing tar barrels dragged through the streets by geysers blowing horns. This was suppressed in 1875 by the Victorians as being too rowdy, replaced by a torchlit procession, and then in 1889 a 30-foot Viking longship led the procession. Preparations begin months in advance under the direction of an elected geyser jarl, all Viking terminology. The ship is built by voluntary labour from materials purchased buys from donations. Everyone dresses up as Vikings. But this strong Viking element's really been added in the last 100 years. And the ship has a dragon prow, its sides are hung with shields. There are over 500 geysers. They're split into 10-men squads, and they all have slightly different costumes. And since 1899, the day's begun with the posting at the Market Cross of a 10-foot-high bill or Geyser Jarl's proclamation, which is a satirical review of the year's local events, with many personal references. At 10 a.m., the Jarl and his own team of geysers, all in full Viking costume, escort the wheel-mounted ship to the seafront, where it remains on display until at 6:45 it is dragged to the starting point of the procession. Soon afterwards, the Jarl takes his stand at the helm with a Viking bodyguard around him, and then there are behind two long columns of geysers in fancy dress, each bearing a blazing torch. Music is pipe and brass bands. They sing the Up Heliar song, and the procession moves off, reaches the burning site near the town centre, and the torches are thrown into the ship, which burns out while the geysers sing the Norseman's Home. Then the 50 or so squads visit in rotation every one of Lerwick's 13 halls to play their variety acts and to dance and to take refreshments, and the celebrations go on all night long in Lerwick. This is a Geyser Jarl's team from 1906 here. Increasingly, women have got more involved in this now. A lot of these customs were originally male preserves. That's a lovely Viking prow boat. And the throwing of the torches onto the ship, and the burning boat. And this is an image I got from the Royal Lifeboat Association there, where there's a geyser and the Shetland lifeboat in the background. And these are older photographs from the 1930s of just some of the fancy dress costumes. Then we move on to hunting the wren, a custom common in New Year on 12th night, common in New Year in Ireland, the Isle of Man, but it has got a traditional recorded instance in Scotland, Kirkmaiden in Galloway, where boys used to go out on New Year's morning to catch a wren in a ceremony known as the decking of the wren. Its legs and necks were decorated with ribbons. It was released. That's unusual because in other Celtic areas like Brittany and Wales and Ireland, the wren was killed as a sacrificial king. In Scotland, it was released. An account of it dates from the 1890s, and a wren song was included in David Hur's Ancient and Modern Scottish Songs. In Scotland, it was lucky to shed blood on New Year's Day. Men and boys would search for some bird or wild animal to make killing which would make sure of 1 year's good fortune. Housewives would sometimes kill a domestic fowl on New Year's morning to fulfill the same good luck ideas. Throw Tuesday, the big celebration in Catholic times, but not so strong in Scotland. But traditionally, they're robust sports. Beginning of Lent, and a public holiday after being shriven at church. And in Musselburgh, a little fishing village just south of Edinburgh, Guthrie mentions on Shrove Tuesday there used to be a standing match of football between the married and the unmarried fisherwomen, in which the former were always victorious. I wonder why is it that the married women always beat the unmarried women? That's a unique custom. I've never come across anything like that in other parts of the British Isles, and it's not still going on, sadly. But an event that has survived, in the photo here, is Whoopity Screwy Day, which is the 1st of March, and this is in Lanark in Strathclyde. And this is an extraordinary custom. About 5:45 in the evening, a large group of local children gather at the foot of the town steeple, Lanark Cross. At 6 p.m. the wee bell is rung. That bell is supposed to remain silent for the previous year. And all of these ritual rules for New Year customs, or for seasonal customs. The children then run clockwise 3 times around St Nicholas Kirk, make as much noise as possible, and swinging paper balls at the end of the string above their heads. And then coins are thrown for the children to scramble for. The origins are obscure. It's been suggested they're chasing away evil spirits or welcoming spring. The early records are in the local newspaper, the Hamilton Advertiser, which refers to it in the mid-19th century, calling it the Wee Ball Ceremony. The Royal Borough of Lanark took over organising the custom from the town council in 1975, and they also now have a storytelling festival and an art workshop after the event. It's almost a week, or from 1st of March to the 7th of March, with various celebrations in Lanark. Then we come to the other really important festival in Scotland. That's May Day, which is called Beltane. Also in Ireland, other Celtic areas, huge bonfires to celebrate what's really the beginning of summer. This is a bonfire from Ireland. James McKinley's Folklore of Scottish Lochs and Springs says, most important fire festival in Scotland, that of Beltane at the beginning of May, celebrated generally throughout our land. To the south of the Forth, several sites are known to have been specially associated with Beltane fires. In Lanarkshire, 2 such sites were the hills of Tinto and Detchmont. And the quite a lot of survival sort of references in Edinburgh. This is dancing around a maypole, Arthur's Seat. This is from James' Book of Days. And then Neil's sent me some images of the modern Beltane festivals in Edinburgh, date I think from the 1990s. And a lot of disguise and carrying of fire beacons. Yeah. And something else that's been revived is the bathing your face in May morning dew. So early in the morning on May Day, you're supposed to, for ladies, it says, bathe your face. And there's a well near Arthur's Seat where this is still being done or has been revived. It's known in England as well. Catherine of Aragon used to bathe her face in May morning dew. So did Mrs. Pepys. That wonderful extract in Pepys's diary where Samuel Pepys is too tired to get out of bed and go with his wife. He lays in bed worrying if she's going to be safe going out early in the morning. And then says she, back to bed, all's well. That's her bathing the face. Guthrie, in his old Scottish customs, 1885, early on the morning of the 1st of May, young people used to go to parties to the fields to gather May dew, to which some ascribed a happy influence, others a sort of medicinal virtue, to have a fine complexion for the remainder of the year. And also customs linked to bathing in pools or wells on the 1st of May, then changed to the first, probably by the church, to the first Sunday in May. There's Guthrie gives 3 examples: St Corbet's Well, the west of Stirling, the Crystal Well, believed to possess peculiar qualities of ensuring for a 12-month the lives of all who drank its waters before sunrise on the first Sunday in May, Then he mentions St Maiden's Cave near Kirk Maiden, which has a pool there where people used to bathe. The chap then became renamed by the Christians as the Chapel Well. And then Bootle in Galloway, there's a well called the Rumbling Well, which was formerly frequented by crowds of sick people on the first Sunday in May. They lay by its side all Saturday night and drank of it early in the morning. This is also some of the holy wells. This is a slide sent to me by Neil. The wells are dressed with fragments of linen, rather similar to the English well dressing customs. And then, what is completely you don't find in England, or very rarely in England, are the ridings. So the ridings of the marches are very very impressive in Scotland. Enacted annually in several Scottish border and lowland towns. There are ceremonial ridings around the town's boundaries or marches. In England, there's a beating of the bounds by walking. In Scotland, it's riding. They're checking against incursions from neighbouring landlords, and also from skirmishes that with the English and clan skirmishes which may have affected the borders. The riders usually dress in traditional attire. They have as a central figure a standard bearer, often an unmarried cornet, as here, and bearing the town's flag. And the celebration continues variety of activities. Or, also, they often celebrate battles or skirmishes as well. So we've got the Berwick Creed celebration. I can't actually read the captions actually at the moment up here, but I just so the captions may not. I'm not sure if you can see the captions. What I'm showing you may not quite correspond with the descriptions. Berwick upon Tweed, riding of the bounds, and Stirling has a walking of the marches. They're in May. It's all summer things. The Howick common riding, I think here, is the first Friday after the first Monday in June, commemorates the skirmish at Hornsdale in 1514, when Howick youths attacked the raiding English and took back their flag after the decimation of the Battle of Flodden the year before. This is a cornet riding here. Howick has the old song that they all sing there. The Selkirk common ridings in June. That's again linked to the Battle of Flodden. Commemorates the sole survivor bringing a captured English banner back to town. Then Melrose and Biggar also have ridings in June. There's Galloshins Braw lads gathering, and Guthrie gives an account of Ruther Glen as well. These are lots of them have been revived, and the videos again on the website. Now we saw the Edinburgh one recently. Was on the 14th of September. These are views taken from our flat, taken by my wife. 280 horses ride up the Royal Mile as a reenactment of the return of the captain of the train band, responsible for keeping order in the city, to Edinburgh with the tragic news of the defeat of the Battle of Flodden in 1513. So first of all, you get a procession, and then meanwhile, the ridings are taking place on the outskirts of Edinburgh, about 280 horsemen. There's a pipe band here as well. The horsemen then gather, and then they ride up the Royal Mile, led by the captain and the lass. So this is the back view of the captain of the lass, and this is the front view of the horse procession. They ride up the Royal Mile to the Market Cross, where they dismount. The various ceremonies take place at the Market Cross, and then the riders come back down the Royal Mile, and Well, some of them do. Others go to the Three Sisters pub, where there are further festivities. This is huge spectators gathering by the Market Cross to see various presentations. A lot of civic dignitaries are taking part in this as well. And there's some of the horsemen who haven't gone. They can't always find their place. Most of the riders have to ride back because of the horses, but the people on foot were able to get into the pub. Pleased to see. They were moving through the summer. We've got towards the autumn, interesting customs. The Berryman's Parade is one we go to every year, and South Queensferry. On the eve of Ferry Fair, the fair dates from 1687. Originally was on St James's Day, but now takes place on the second Friday in August, the Berryman procession, and that's the beginning of the fair. Berryman's dressed from head to foot in white flannel, closely covered with adhesive burrs, with only his eyes visible through holes cut in the cloth. He wears a cap of roses. Parade starts at the Stag's Head Hotel at 8:30 a.m. with his arms outstretched sideways, carrying flower staves, supported by two attendants, preceded by a man or boy, with groups of children shouting "Hip hip hooray! It's the Berryman's Day." Traditionally, you gave a penny to the Berryman. It's an arduous thing to be the Berryman, and he used to collect money. Now it's all collected for charity, but the Berryman was a kind of scapegoat figure. He used to keep the money he was given. But he can't really eat anything, but he can drink whiskey. Lots of people give him little tots of whiskey. He's appointed by the Ferry Fair Committee, and he opens the Ferry Fair at 6 o'clock evening, and he's accompanied by pipers. It's that all-day thing, but it's great to go. It goes about the last hour on the high street. You can see he goes in tour through the pubs. And it ends at the Stag Hotel. Could be a scapegoat figure bearing, by his penance, clearing all the sins of the community, or bringing good luck, sort of fertility. And there were one or two other coastal villages nearby that had similar customs at one time. There's Forth Bridge in the background there. And it takes a long time to make the floral staves, and it takes about a couple of hours to dress the Berryman in his burrs. It's the Hawes Inn there. That's it inside the Stag's Inn. That's the Berryman and his crew. One taken by my wife. They're very, very spectacular. Musselburgh has something similar with the fishwife and the cullant. That's a picture of the fishwife was a man dressed up as a woman, and that was a July custom at Musselburgh. There's now a week's festival of Musselburgh. This is a photo of the fisherman's parade. All sorts of events go on at Musselburgh, but they haven't reenacted the ceremony of the cullant and the fishwife. There's quite a lot of information about that interesting custom on at the museum there. Then in Scotland, Michaelmas, 29th of September is quite important, particularly in the Western Isles where the horse racing customs. The Michaelmas Daisy is celebrated, and they have strewn cake that is given out on St Michael's Day. But then Halloween and Samhain is very important, of course. In some Celtic areas, Halloween was the beginning of the new year. It's a time associated with ghosts and spirits and divination. And in Scotland, it's a time for girls to find out about one's future partner. So, for example, an apple taken and sliced off in front of a looking glass. Each piece before being eaten was stuck on the point of a knife held over the left shoulder of the performer, who kept looking into the glass, combing the hair. The spectre of the man who was to be her husband appeared behind her, dressing up, perhaps to emulate the spirits that were around at Halloween. This is a Halloween album of, I think, 1909. And these are geysers. So you guise the New Year and at Halloween. And so Walter Scott, of course, a great person for folk customs, he collected a wonderful song. This is actually about Martinmas, which is old Halloween, 11 days later, about spirits coming back. And this is the wife of Usher as well. This is Smaleham Tower, where Scott used to go as a boy. His grandparents lived there. There was a wife of Usher's well, a Carlin woman was she. She had 3 stout and stalwart sons, she sent them o'er the sea. They had not been from Usher's well a week but barely ane, when word came to the Carlin wife that her 3 sons were gone. I wish the wind may never cease, nor flashes in the flood, till my 3 sons come hame to me in earthly flesh and blood. It fell upon the Martinmas, when nights are lang and murk, 3 sons came home to Usher's well, their hats were o'er the birk, that neither grew in ditch nor dike, nor yet in any sow, but at the gates of paradise that birk grew well enow. Blow up the fire, my maidens, bring waters frae the well, for all my house shall feast this night, since my 3 sons are well. Then up and crow the blood-red cock, and up and crow the grey. The eldest to the youngest said, it's time we were away. For the cock doth crow, the day doth doe, the channerin worm doth chide. Gin we be missed out o' our place, a sair pain we mun bide. That's the 3 drowned men. They're just allowed to come back just for that one night. And finally, finishing the year on Christmas and going on into New Year, they've got the plays. In England, they're called Mummers plays. In Scotland, they're Galloshins. And in England, they were the saints who often fight each other or fighting against a Turkish knight. But in Scotland, most of the Galloshin plays, the saints' names have been removed, and they just have names like Walking In. And this is a book by Emily Lyle, Galloshins Remembered, where she's collected some very interesting material, and particularly in the borders on the lowland. That's a reenactment there, and this is a reenactment from the school of Scottish studies, and there you get it from Moor Battle in Roxburgh. Was a particularly famous one. The one character that is similar to the English Mum's Play is the Doctor. In Scotland, the Doctor who revives the dead man, so the death and resurrection custom is always called Dr. Brown. And finally, with the in Papastour in the Shetlands is the Shetland sword dance, and this is a remarkable. It could well be a Viking influence. There were Viking sword dancers. It's also found a sword dance in Yorkshire and Northumberland. But in Papastour, they enact a play of the 7 champions, where there is a spoken text as well, which you can see online. So if you look up the Papastour sword dance, you get about 5 or 6 minutes video of the 7 champions of Christendom all appear. And they do a play and a ritual dance. So it's death and resurrection, which links up. So then after death and resurrection, then you're ready for the New Year customs. So I think this is my last slide here. So thank you very much for your attention. I'd be delighted to hear any comments and take any questions.